오랜만에 인물탐구로 돌아왔습니다. 이번엔 프로골프 선수가 아니라는 점 미리 말씀드리고요. 저번 시간에 소개해드린 브랜드 백과에서 타이틀리스트라는 브랜드를 설명한 영상이 있었는데요. 영상을 보시다 보면 타이틀리스트가 유명해지게 된 계기나 회사가 성공하도록 큰 도움을 줬던 사람들이 있습니다. 예를 들자면 퍼터하면 1순위로 떠오르는 남자 스카트 카메론, 타이틀리스트의 로고, 그 유명한 필기체를 만들어준 헬렌 로빈슨, 타이틀리스트의 CEO이자 타이틀 그 자체, 원리 유라인. 타이틀리스트의 성공은 여기서부터 시작이다. 바로 타이거 우즈까지 이토록 여러 명의 인물들을 볼 수 있는데요. 오늘은 그 중에서도 위에 언급하지 않았던 한 사람을 소개해드리려고 합니다. 웨지 하나에 인생을 걸었으며 그만큼 높은 사명감을 가지고 있고 골프를 치는 사람이라면 누구나 알 수 있는 보키 디자인 웨지의 아버지이자 투어 사용률 1위뿐만 아니라 전세계 골퍼 기준에서도 1위의 사용률을 가지고 있는 웨지를 직접 디자인하고 제작까지 하고 있으며 또한 골프 명예의 전당에도 올라가 있는 그 남자 바로 밥 보키입니다. 이번 영상은 타이틀리스트 코리아에서 제작한 영상을 가지고 와서 제가 따로 편집을 해보았습니다. 다큐멘터리 식으로 제작되어 있으며 원본 영상을 보고 싶으시다면 아래 설명란에 링크를 걸어 놓았으니 참고해주시면 감사하겠습니다.
I'm from Montreal, Canada, a little town called Verdun. I loved the game of golf. My dad was a fine tool and die maker, and he was also a very, very good golfer. That's where I learned all about angles, taking measurements. I learned how grinders worked, I learned how lathes worked, and I worked them by hand all the way through my summers. I came to United States in 1966, December. I thought at that particular time that I could play, but I realized when I'm out there hitting 3-woods into par 5s and still not getting home, I said, well, I think I better do what I was born to do. And that was work with my hands. I really enjoyed that. Then it came the opportunity, I said, doggone, I'm going to open my own shop. A little old golf shop called Bob's Custom Golf at Fallbrook, California. About a couple of years later, I opened up a little shop in Vista, California called the Golf Master.
I met Bob for the first time in La Costa. He was repairing clubs and building golf clubs, in other words, for their pro staff. That's what his job was, because he had a repair shop down the road. He knew a lot about golf clubs and how to put them together and how to balance them and what the pros really needed, what kind of grind they needed and everything else. So Bob was very instrumental in doing this.
In 1986, he went to work building clubs for TaylorMade. 5 years later, he helped start the Founders Club, a company specializing in metal woods and irons. In 1996, Bob joined Titleist, where his true genius as a master craftsman was realized.
Terry McKay called me and said, how would you like to come over to Titleist, work at Titleist? I said, God, yeah, I would like to do that. So I did some final tweaking with Terry on this particular driver he had, and the driver was the 975D. That's how I started.
We were in a meeting and we decided that we really needed to up our game in wedges. Who should we have lead the wedge category? Bob raised his hand. He said, I'll do it. And we said, what do you know about wedges? And he said, I love wedges. We said, okay, you're the guy.
Thank you.
The next morning, literally in Bob's office, there were hundreds of wedges. And he wanted to talk about shapes. He would go to the tour and say, what do you think of this shape? What do you think of this shape? And he'd come back and he'd refine. And he'd literally go back the next week. How's this? Wow, this is going to end up really good because he is designing for the players who are actually going to use the products.
So I walk out with my bag of wedges and players come up to me and said, what do you got there, Volk? I remember Andy Bean. Should I test them? Goes greenside, hits a couple, boom, cans one, sticks it tight like that. Then he steps out and hits some full shots, a couple of bunker shots. He said, can I take it in play? So Andy took it, put it in play, and the first club, that would have been in 1997.
He's working on a golf club, developing a new club. Why is he developing this club? You know, it's basically answering the players' questions. Here's what you wanted, here's what we got for you.
A long time ago, I remember working with Steve Stricker, and he had a 14 degree bounce, but it had a full sole. He said, Bob, I'm having a little trouble. The trailing edge was bouncing into it, and the ball was coming off low and squirty, I'd call it, you know? So what I did, we went in the van, and I just put a ribbon in the back of the wedge, which actually moves the trailing edge contact point closer to the center of the wedge. And as a result, you could tune better and got the ball airborne. And that's where the S-grind came from.
We actually made a T-grind based upon some of my input and
You know, I like the bounce point to be closer to the leading edge, more of the back edge of the flange shaved off. So we experimented around and we came up with the T-grind, and he put the T-grind into effect for the 64-degree wedge.
The wedges that this Bob has designed for me have helped me win golf tournaments.
He's an innovator. You know, he's the one that really created the wedges that most PGA Tour players, LPGA Tour players, and amateurs alike love to play. And that's why everybody plays his wedges. They're so good.
It's funny, we did not set out.
재미있게 시청 중이시라면 구독과 좋아요, 알람 설정까지 부탁드리겠습니다.
Number one wedge on tour. We didn't. We just set out to make great wedges. It wasn't until we were well into this that we realized we're going to be the number one wedge on tour.
Bob makes his wedge debut, Memphis, 1997. Andy Bean puts the first Vokey wedge into play, and off we go. That was some 11 million wedges ago. But there is one thing that everyone who knows the Voke can agree on, and that is that our lives have been enriched by his energy, by his enthusiasm, and by his passion for his craft.
On behalf of Golf Canada, the Hall of Fame members, and the selection committee, congratulations and welcome Bob Vokey to the Canadian Golf Hall of Fame.
Bob brings 100% dedication. He's committed to quality. So much knowledge about wedges and the game in general.
It's been really an honor to know a man like Bob Vokey. I've spent so much time working with Bob, so I know how much passion and commitment has gone into a Vokey design wedge.
Especially when you see his name on the wedges, you know this is the guy that created all these great shots that I've hit from when I was really young.
When anybody ever mentions Bob Vokey to anybody, everybody smiles, everybody says what a great guy he is, and that he's the best in the business, and that's the truth.
The guy wakes up with a smile on his face. He's passionate about what he does. He comes with a great attitude day in and day out, and he's a very generous and gracious man.
Bob's still just cranking away, wants to learn, he keeps learning and keeps trying to get better. And I think that's a hallmark of a great person and what they do.
Bob Vokey captured it all. He captured every bit of it. He's the only one out there today that actually hand makes these clubs different people. Now, I know that he doesn't grind them all, but he has a staff that he's taught all this to. And they do a terrific job.
Bob's legacy, it's going to have a number of faces to it. Obviously the products, those will live on for a long, long time. I think it's much, much more though about the people that he's connected with. There's so many of the world's greatest players who are grateful to Bob for the interaction and his ability to help them play better golf.
When I get to the first traffic light on the way to work in the morning, and I start wishing for that traffic light to turn red, then I make the U-turn and go home. But right now, it's still all green lights all the way to work.
뭔가 이대로 끝내면 아쉬울 것 같아서 밥포키가 직접 설명하는 웨지에 대한 꿀팁, 또한 예술적인 벙커샷까지 볼 수 있는 영상을 만들고 있으니 기대하셔도 좋을 것 같습니다. 다음 편 예고 영상을 보여드리면서 오늘 영상은 마무리하도록 하겠습니다. 시청해주셔서 감사합니다.